All right, guys, Mike, aka Crypto Jewels, and here we are again with our Bitcoin update. And for those of you who saw the video yesterday, we kind of talked about market sentiment. We talked about the bearish news and the bullish reaction, I guess, if you want to call it that, to the news, and how that is an important key indicator, in my opinion, that kind of gives us a signal of what this market is doing. And, you know, that is, as far as I'm concerned, I believe the bottom is in down here in this November. I'm sorry, that's not it. The November low down here. So, you know, typically in markets, just to give a real quick recap, you know, in bearish markets, obviously, bearish news impacts the price significantly. You know, if you get some sort of bearish news, you know, FTX, whatever, then all of a sudden it creates these nasty sell-offs, which ultimately lines up well with, you know, what the technical analysis from an Elliott wave standpoint is calling to happen. But it, you know, it just works out that way. And then same goes in a bull market, or at least in a transitory market, which I believe we're in a transitioning market, moving from bear to bull. You know, we have to ultimately have 5 waves off the low and hold that structure and not break the low, et cetera, et cetera. But in a bull market, bullish news creates the same types of spikes, and bearish news can, you know, cause small reactions, but typically those reactions are not sustained. So as of right now, the bearish news that we got here with the you know, SEC suing Binance and Coinbase was immediately bought and gobbled right back up, and the entire dump was retraced with a pump. And the volume down here, you've got basically the same level of buy volume as you do sell volume. So that is a good sign. It's not like we just got eaten back up on, excuse me, on a low volume, not much happening type of scenario. So that's a good sign. But, you know, as I talked about, even though, you know, the Elliott wave structure here is kind of potentially calling for another low, you know, at least it would be nice to see that finish out and get a complete structure. We certainly do not have to bottom. I'm not going to say I don't think we've bottomed at this point. We really need proof in order to call the bottom in, and proof is in the form of a 5-wave structure off of the low, and then holding a retrace, which is kind of what we got here, which would be this 5-wave structure here, and then holding this 3-wave structure, and then breaking back above the top of that 5-wave. That ultimately is what we really have to see from an analysis standpoint to say, okay, you know, we can confidently start to say and assume that the bottom is in. As we talked about yesterday, there's still a couple different potentials that could push us lower, which happens to be this WX, and then this could be a, you know, an A, B, C for an Alt B, and then from there you would impulse possibly down for our final Y wave, which would ultimately be, you know, this structure here. Oops, sorry. Which would ultimately be this structure, a W, X, A, B, and then C. So that's one scenario possible. The other bearish scenario is that this is a 3-wave W. This is a 3-wave X. This could be a 3-wave Y, bottom being in, and now working on our impulse, or this could end up being an A wave here, and then a B wave here, and then a final C wave down, still taking us to our lower targets. But that, again, does not have to happen. This is analysis. This is trying to go over possible scenarios and make the best decisions from a risk reward RR standpoint as to what positions we're going to take when we're doing our trading. I talked about this area down here being the ultimate area that I would really like to see a two-wave retrace to, the 50% and 61.8% retracement level, but we don't have to have that happen. These scenarios that I just outlined ultimately likely take us down to really at least that 50% level, which is at 24,600 or so. But there is the possibility that we are indeed bottomed. And like I said, you've got to have 5-wave structures in order to have a low in place. This impulse, now this is on the 5 minutes, so this is really in the weeds. This impulse here is a 5-wave structure. You can count a 5-wave as basically a 1, 2, 3, 4, and then an extended 5. And there's several different ways you can count this, but ultimately it is an impulsive structure and a 5-wave. And as of right now, the way that I have this counted is as a B, and then working on possibly an ending diagonal for our C, and then we could get a possible 2-wave here, and then break it back above our 1-wave, which would be the first baby step of saying, okay, we possibly could have bottomed, because on a micro, smaller time frame, Elliott wave is like, it's like fitting a big puzzle together. So you got to start with the edges and then work your way into the middle. And this would be starting on the edges. It would be a baby step for putting in a larger degree impulsive structure, which would eventually look something like this, which would be this 1, 2, a 3, a 4, and a 5. So that would be ultimately what we want to see. And then we would want to see a 1, 2, 3-wave structure down, and then an impulse back up, breaking back above the top of that 5. That's what we would really have to see in order to say, okay, the bottom is now in here, and we are ultimately onto our larger degree 3-wave, and ready to really, reverse our trend in an upwards manner. But we do have to look out. We talked about this Alt B scenario, which would actually be, this as an A, this as a B, and then this as a 5-wave C. So that could put in our Alt B, at $29,000-$30,000, and then we should expect a retracement from there. And the way this retraces and how it recovers will determine whether or not we're going to finish with an impulsive structure down, or whether or not we're going to, impulse and break back above the top of that structure there. So ultimately, we have to see this bullish structure play out in a 5-wave manner, which we are currently potentially working on. But ultimately, for that to happen, we have got to have this structure hold. As of right now, we have to have this 1 and this 2 hold. We have so far retraced right down here at the 61.8% level, which is typical of a 2-wave. This thing from an Elliott wave standpoint is calling for a little bit lower. You throw your fibs on here, typically zigzag structures, which is an A, B, C, usually go 1.0 to 1.236 extension of your A and your B wave, which would be basically anywhere from 25,722 all the way to 25,956. So that's ultimately what we would need to hold in order to really say that the bottom is in, and we can start looking at a potential larger degree impulsive structure off of the low. But technically speaking, what needs to hold is this low right here. If this low breaks, which is 25,335, 25,355, then we have invalidated this count, and we are, on to some other kind of, probably at that point, I would likely assume that we are on the larger degree WX, and then this being an A, B, and then having a three-wave structure down. So those, again, that's the scenarios that we're looking at. I'll keep these updated. We'll see y'all later.